We trust ourselves and that we've done enough. And we trust that they will find their way. Oof, this was a big one. This is a hard one. Listen, we can't protect our kids from every single thing. They are their own special beings having their own lived experience. And a lot of times, the things that shape us, our biggest and most fruitful life lessons, come from our biggest mistakes. And who are we to prevent our kids from experiencing the things that are going to teach them just what the heck they're made of? Hey, I'm Brooke Jean, therapist, recovering perfectionist, and struggling working mom on a mission to normalize normal. If you're an overwhelmed, high-achieving, and secretly anxious mama, struggling to balance it all and on the brink of burnout, you are in the right place. Here is where we talk about hard things like balancing work and family life, mental health, and how to navigate life-altering transitions. Nothing is too taboo here. In my conversations, I'll teach you how to let go of who you think you're supposed to be in order to create the life you've always wanted. Get ready to embrace your messy, shed the shoulds, and find freedom through a life unperfected. This is the Unperfected Pod. Well, hello, Mama. Welcome back to the Unperfected Pod, where we normalize normal and find freedom through a life unperfected. Before we jump into today's topic, I just wanted to check in with you really quick. So if you're with me, take a moment to just take a deep breath in and take a deep breath out. Just check in with yourself here in this very moment. How are you? How are you feeling? What's happening in your life? What's happening in your world? I want to help you get in the habit of attuning to you, checking in on you, taking a breath, honoring what's coming up. I'm going to keep guiding you to do that until you learn how, until you start to receive the juicy benefits and start doing it on your own. Today's topic is a pretty emotional one for me. It's something that I'm going through at this very moment and have for the past few years now. And it's something that I feel like we experience in so many different ways and at so many different points along the motherhood journey, which is grief. Grief, grief, grief. I don't feel like we talk about grief enough. And yet I feel like we experience it, but it kind of hides out in the shadows or it wears different masks. And so the intention of today's podcast is to invite you in to a way in which grief is showing up for me in my mamahood journey and what I'm doing to navigate the messiness of it all. But let me start by saying we grieve a lot of different things becoming a mom, right? We grieve our identities and who we were before we became this really precious and important role of mother. We grieve our marriages and what our relationships were like before we added this responsibility to our plate. If you're anything like me, you grieve your free time and your perky you-know-whats after breastfeeding. Where did they go? And so it is normal to grieve lost parts of yourself, lost parts of your experience, lost parts of who you thought you were going to be or what you thought your world was going to be in this experience of being a mom. But the part of grief that I want to talk about today, it's like a sweet spot of grief. It's its own unique experience, is when your kid is in high school and planning to leave the nest and then leaving the nest. That pocket in time. I want to normalize what happens in that pocket and all of the grief that comes with it. Here's one of the biggest shifts I feel like I've ever had to make as a mother. Like when these kids are growing up, we are so involved in their every move. We are managing every part of their life. We are spending so much time with them. We know when they're hungry. We know what their moods are. We know what's going on at school. We know what's going on in their social life. We know if they clean their room or not. We know if they scored that goal or not. We are heavily involved in every single thing in their lives. Some more than others, depending on your parenting style, but we're really involved. There's a way of being that type of parent at that stage of parenthood. And then all of a sudden, like out of the nowhere, these kids are supposed to go off and fly and go to college or pursue their thing after high school that they're interested in. And we are suddenly supposed to completely shift our level of involvement, our level of management, if we're being honest, and our relationship. We're supposed to change the way that we relate. And it is a really beautiful life transition. And there is so much grief involved. So let's get into it. When the kids are little, people will say, savor every moment. It goes by so fast. And let me just tell you how much that sentiment would piss me off when my kids were babies. Okay, the it goes by fast story wasn't landing on me when I was up in the middle of the night nursing my baby, dead tired, starving to death because I had to cut out dairy, soy, nuts, and eggs to be able to nurse her. Or when my ankles were completely swollen, or my tits were leaking, or I was just dying to go somewhere without packing like I was climbing Everest. Or when I was just longing for some free time so I could hear myself think or to have an adult conversation. Don't tell me to savor every moment and that it goes by fast when these are the longest minutes, hours, and days of my life. Because those were for me. Those newborn stages were really hard for me. Some moms love it. There's no right or wrong way to be here. But for me, what felt like baby prison, right? When you're stuck in the house and they're stuck on your boob and it's hard to go anywhere. And my daughter, she didn't like being in the car. She didn't like being in the stroller. And I'm the type of person that needs to get out and experience things. And I have to be in the sun and I have to socialize. So being stuck inside for the majority of my days and weeks and months was really hard on me. Layer in the postpartum depression and anxiety. Those days felt never ending. Those days I questioned, am I gonna make it? Are we gonna make it? What the hell have I done? And so those were not the days that I was worrying about how fast it was gonna go. And when I hit their next stage, that I was gonna grieve the one that I was in. And so I want to normalize if you're one of those mamas that's almost wishing away time because you can't wait till they make it to that next milestone. Like you are just wishing that they're going to be old enough to get themselves in their own gosh darn car seat or their own snack, or heaven forbid they play by themselves, right? If you have found yourself wishing away time because it's hard, you're not a bad mom. Okay, I found myself doing that too. But here's the scoop. I have a 5-year-old who's still not playing by herself, who still can't buckle herself in. And I have a 19-year-old who is a sophomore in college. And so the truth bomb is, yes, when they're young, the days are long. But guys, it's true. It does go so fast. So the high school graduation transition is a doozy, if I do say so. Let me just warn you, it hits really hard their junior year of high school. At least it did in my experience. And I have several clients right now who have kiddos in this transition, and it's really uncanny, the similar and parallel experiences. But there is not a one size fits all when it comes to this stuff. You guys know that. But their junior year, Our kids are supposed to be kind of pulling their best self together to start applying for college or figuring out what they're going to do post-graduation. They're supposed to be putting their best foot forward. They're supposed to be pulling together their resumes and their portfolios, and they're supposed to be like volunteering and meeting with mentors to get letters of recommendation. The checklist that you receive as a parent to help your kid get to graduation is straight up daunting and overwhelming. I cannot tell you how many to-dos are involved with getting these kids to their senior year and to whatever's next for them. It is unbelievable. Okay. And at the same time as you're getting daily emails from the school counselor of all of the things that you're supposed to be doing or missed or they missed, your teenager is currently triggering the living shit out of you, not getting up on time, not giving a crap about anything. And when you ask them what they want to do after high school, they go, oh. You just get a grunt. Oh. So it's like the world is telling you, hurry up, this is really important. We have a lot of things we're supposed to do. But your teenager is telling you, I'm not doing anything. Okay? And as a mom, you're the bridge between the two at the same time as you're totally going through this grieving process, but you don't know you're going through a grieving process. You're just straight up overwhelmed by it all. This is a really hard spot to be in as a parent, as a mother. Right? This is when our kids are supposed to be choosing who they want to be and what they're passionate about, but they are not good at choosing anything. Why? Well, because their prefrontal cortex, the executive functioning part of their brain that makes decisions, that analyzes data, she's not fully built yet. So they're not good at making decisions. They don't know who they are. Of course they don't. But we're having to make all of these like grown up decisions without that piece functioning. It's really hard. And here is where grief shows up in a really insidious way that I think a lot of people miss and don't recognize as grief, because it shows up as a starting to question everything you've done as a parent. Grief shows up as, have I done enough to get this kid ready for the real world? You start playing in your mind all of the things that you've done wrong, all of your moments that you're not proud of, and you start worrying how that's shaped them. You start questioning. You start feeling scared. You start feeling bad. You start feeling emotional. This is part of the grieving process. And let me assure you, you have done enough. This is not an opportunity for you to go back and shame yourself for every wrong turn you think you made. This is where you acknowledge, whoa, I'm having a hard time here. This might be grief. This might be me living through a major life transition of getting my kids ready to graduate and go do what they're going to do. Of course, that's going to come with big feelings. And what do I need to be okay to put one foot in front of the other and get another thing checked off this everlasting checklist? But then something happens, mamas. And it's really around, or it was for us, their senior year second semester. Of course, it has to be the second semester when you've already felt the wheels are completely falling off the bus for the last year and a half. These little assholes are not going to be going to college. They're not going to be able to take care of themselves. They're going to be living in my basement forever. I have failed as a mother. You've been in that for a year and a half, and you've been the one pushing them through this process. And then all of a sudden, they wake up one day, senior year, semester 2, like a different person. Like they're actually ready. They've matured or something. It is such a weird and yet so necessary shift. It's like suddenly they wake up and they're just like ready to do life. And you see them differently. And what's so uncanny or just interesting about this experience now that I look back, I feel like that year and a half where you do feel like the wheels are falling off the bus, that year and a half, like junior year, sophomore is pretty obnoxious too, if we're being 100 here. But junior into senior year, when they're really annoying, I think that is literally prepping us for letting them go. Because when you're trying to push them to get all the things done and they're not waking up on time or not getting their homework done or not doing what they say they're going to do or not showing any interest or not cleaning up their rooms or giving you attitude or being ungrateful, all those annoying things teenagers do, bless their hearts, it's normal teenage behavior, but it's annoying when you're a parent. I feel like that happens for a reason. Because there's moments when you think to yourself, I actually might be okay with this asshole not living in my house and in my day-to-day life. I actually can picture what it's going to be like when I'm not totally disrespected and scared to come into your room to see what I'm going to find every day, right? Like it's preparing us to be okay letting them go because it's so hard. And again, listen, you guys, I love my kids implicitly. I absolutely am obsessed and adore my kids, but I will be the first to tell you that they can be annoying, right? But all people are annoying. I'm annoying, they're annoying, you're annoying. We can all be annoying. It doesn't make us a bad mom when we just speak the truth about things, okay? So they're really annoying their junior year of high school. And I think that happens for a reason. So we can imagine what life will be like without them. But then senior year semester 2, they get it together. They grow up a little bit. They mature. They show a different readiness that helps you trust just a little bit more that they're going to be okay. And this is when the worry and the grief comes in just more directly. This is where you might find yourself just crying in their room, looking at their stuff. This is where you might find yourself staring at them in awe and just soaking in every ounce of them, or begging them to go to lunch with you every weekend or whatever it is. I feel like this is when the more obvious grief shows up. You start to mourn them leaving the house and not being there. You start to grieve what was. You know it's coming. The anticipation is real. And here is where your role and your relationship with them is supposed to shift. And we're supposed to engage differently and treat them like more like adults and let them manage their own things and be more of like a mentor and a supportive role than the person that physically protects their safety and feeds them and makes sure they're okay every day. It's like we're not holding them through life anymore. We're coaching them alongside while they're living their life. And there is so much grief in that change in your role, in that change in your identity, in that shift in your relationship. And the hardest part about that is there's no effing rubric. We don't know what we're doing. I don't know if I'm doing this right. I don't know if I'm, helicopter parenting you. And so here's where we don't know if we're doing it right because there's no rubric. We don't know if we're too involved or not involved enough. We don't know if we should be letting them make decisions for themselves and living the natural consequences or jumping in and preventing the train wreck. We don't know. There's no right or wrong way to be here. And that's really scary too. I remember the day when we dropped Camden off for college. It was a really emotional day. I have never felt so much pride and grief and worry all in one afternoon. On the one hand, I was so proud of this human being that we've created and who he's becoming and the person he is, and that he has the courage to go to college, to live with a stranger, to pursue jazz music of all things because it's his passion and he's this deep soul. I was so proud of him and also really proud of us that we've made it to this point. You know, I had Camden in college, that's very same campus, CU Boulder. My senior year, I walked around that campus up until 9 months pregnant. I had finals on my due date. I had a baby and then came back and had one more semester, and I brought him as a newborn baby to class with me. He went where I went. He's been my ride or die since I was 22 years old. We've grown up together. And here we are full circle, and I'm dropping him off on the very same campus that I had him in 21 years later or 19 years later. It was a moment. Like, we've kept the human alive. We've raised the human, and I've loved him so hard. And now he's confident enough in himself to make some choices for his life. But then the fear and the anxiety and the worry of like, oh my God, I'm not going to know if you come home at night. I'm not going to know if you go to class. I'm not going to know if you're trying hard drugs, if you're having protected sex. I don't know if your feelings are getting hurt. I don't know if you're eating enough food. You're probably for sure not brushing your teeth enough, right? How am I supposed to just sit with those questions being unanswered? And let me just tell you, mama, you are not going to know. You are not going to know. Some may call you every day and FaceTime you. Some may not, right? You don't get any communication from the school. They go through the student because they're the adult. You don't even get their grades, even though you're paying for the damn thing. You have to ask your child. So you have to sit at home and just hope that they make it through okay. And let me just tell you, there's also grief when your kids don't go to college and choose a path that is different than what you thought they would do, different than what you had dreamed of. And if there's one thing I've learned about being a mom, it's that none of this stuff goes to freaking plan. You're not going to have the son you thought you were going to have. You're not going to have the child you thought you were going to have. They're not going to be in the relationship you thought they'd be in. They're not going to choose the interest or be the star in the thing that you want them to be in. They are going to surprise you, and you have to meet them with where they're at and embrace their authenticity. You have to let them flourish and become who they are, not who you want them to be. And it will surprise you and it will challenge you, and there is grief in that. Right? So we cannot get too set on the outcomes here. And a lot of kids nowadays aren't going to college, right? And that's okay. But it might not be what you had imagined. So Camden made it through his freshman year. And I got to tell you, that was something to be celebrated. That felt like nothing short of a miracle. Okay, we made it through our freshman year without hurting ourselves, without hurting someone else. And we made it in terms of classes and passing them to the next stage. That felt like a freaking miracle. Let me just tell you, not only for them, but for us as parents and what we went through and how many changes we had to go through and new normal that we had to create and find to get there. Okay? In that first year, when you're not knowing if they're going to class or how well they're doing or if they're partying too hard or if they're going to work or if they're brushing their teeth, you have to dig deep into your trust in yourself, your trust in them, your faith in the universe or God or whatever your higher power is. You have to learn to manage your mind so your mind is not managing you. You have to regulate your nervous system. You have to discover who you are now as a parent of someone in college or who's left the home. Or maybe you're an empty nester. Who am I now that I'm an empty nester? And you go through a major life transition. If you haven't already, episode 6 addresses major life transitions and how to navigate them. This, your kid leaving the house, or even just graduating college and entering the world, fleeing in whatever way, Even if they're still living with you, I still think it's a big transition when they graduate and start like living in the big world and they get like a big person job and they're starting to like learn to pay bills and all of that. It's still a transition. But them graduating, becoming 18, becoming an adult, and starting to live their life in a different way, that is a major life transition for us as mothers. It's a process and it's hard. And grief is a huge part of it. I had to learn to be okay, not knowing if my kid was okay every day. I had to figure out who I was, not being Camden's sidekick. That shit shook me, friends. It shook me. I was really emotional those first few months, like would just go to his room and cry. I was really short with my partner. I had to get in front of it and communicate. My husband is my son's stepfather and has helped raise Camden since he was 1. So he is very involved in Camden's life, but he knew it was going to be really hard on me because Cam and I are so close. And I let him know it was, in fact, going to be hard on me. I was losing what felt like my soulmate in the home. You know, I was losing my person. I was losing my little dude, my sidekick, my ride or die. And I'm getting emotional right now just thinking about it, you guys. I missed him every single day. I missed his annoying things he did. I missed hearing his saxophone play. I missed seeing his sister's eyes light up when he came home. I miss being his mom. And now I'm supposed to be like his mentor, his coach, his guide, his parent in a different way. And I didn't know how to do it. So I had to figure it out. But there isn't a rubric. You just adjust. You just check in. You just show up for them. You just remind them that you're proud of them and that you're there. And little by little, you start creating a new normal. And it does, in fact, get easier. I promise. It does get easier. You do adjust and find a new normal. You know, Camden's a sophomore now. He made it through the dorm life. He found roommates. They're all musicians. They live off campus. They play music together. He's happy. He's doing really well. And this is an important piece. You guys are going to think this is ridiculous. He's in state, for Pete's sakes. My child is in state, and I've gone through this much grief that it just brought me to tears all over again. So for you mamas that have a kid who's going out of state, I have so much compassion for you and empathy for you. And I am holding you in my heart right now because I cannot imagine not having any of those questions answered, and they're thousands and thousands and thousands of miles away. Like, if my son needs me, I'm a 25-minute drive away. I get to go to his music performances. He comes home for, all the breaks. So I'm lucky. I'm fortunate. Not every mama gets that. Sometimes they leave and they don't want to come back because they're living their best life. It's not that you failed them. But it does get easier. So let's get to the what do we do and how do we do it? Again, there is no rubric. There is no formula for success. This is just how I do it. This is just what I'm currently doing to navigate this messy transition of your kid leaving the home and living their life. The first thing is to normalize normal, baby. Always. It is normal for you to grieve your kid leaving. It is normal for you to grieve what they're choosing to do as their path if it's not what you thought they were going to do. It's normal to cry all the time, missing them, right? There's a wide range of normal. So wherever you land, let's normalize that. You're not doing it wrong. There is no right way. Number 2, you got to feel your feelings. You have to feel the grief. The only way out is through. So how do we feel our feelings? How do we process grief? We acknowledge it. We cry. We talk about it. Maybe we even join a group of other moms to process, to talk, to mourn, to cry. We go in their room and look at their stuff and cry like I do. We memorialize them. We remember the moments. We look at the pictures. So I have something called the Wall of Camden. It goes up my stairs. It's his school picture from preschool all the way. Now Chloe's got her wall started, preschool and kindergarten. I look at that Wall of Camden and I remember his stages and how each one of his stages of development required a leveling up in my development, and how much grief was in that, and also how much pride is in that too. I go through videos. I remember him, right? Then those of you that already have your kids away, you can probably relate to this, but we send care packages and we do all sorts of crazy stuff because we are so desperate for their attention. We show up at their things that they didn't know we were coming to. We send the care package, right? They are desperate attempts at staying connected. But listen, honey, I am not afraid. I will be that mom. Okay, you can judge me. You can think I'm crazy. Listen, I'm going to get what I can get with this kiddo. Okay? Desperate or not, I want as much attention as I can get when I know his time, energy, and resources are limited and not a lot is going to be coming to me anymore. So I'm going to get what I can. Okay? We read books or listen to podcasts about grief, right? We go slow. We understand that sometimes our grief shows up as anger. Sometimes our grief shows up as denial and pretending like it's all not happening. Our grief shows up as fantasizing when they're going to come home and over obsessively planning what we're going to do when they do come home. Our grief shows up as doubting ourselves and if we've done enough. Whatever it is, we just meet it where it's at without judgment, but with curiosity and breathe through it. We move our bodies to move that emotion through us, right? Crying is a good way to move our body. Talking is, journaling is, hiking, walking, stretching, all those things get that grief moving. But we have to feel our way through this. Do not stuff your grief down, mama. It will just bubble up, similar to anything else. Number 3, we trust ourselves and that we've done enough. And we trust that they will find their way. Oof, this was a big one. This is a hard one. Listen, we can't protect our kids from every single thing. They are their own special beings having their own lived experience. And a lot of times the things that shape us, our biggest and most fruitful life lessons, come from our biggest mistakes. And who are we to prevent our kids from experiencing the things that are going to teach them just what the heck they're made of? When I look back on my life, it was the hardest things that showed me what my strength was, that brought me to my gifts, that made it clear what my purpose was, that helped me remember my why I'm here. Who are we to take that away from our kids? They have to fail forward. They have to learn lessons from their mistakes. They have to remember who they are. They have to find their own sources of strength and resilience. You don't get to just implant that on them. And this is so hard to do because it goes against everything we've done for the last 18 years, where we physically protect them. And now we're supposed to transition to letting them fly and trusting them and allowing them to go through the hard things. Oof, this one's hard, mamas. But let me tell you what, if you have a good connection with your child, if you show them unconditional love, if you remind them that you're always a safe place to land, they're going to come to you when they mess up. And you're going to hold them through their experience. They're going to call you when they've gotten in the car accident. They're going to call you when they're stuck somewhere. They're going to call you when they need help. Because they know you're the person they can go to. And we'll work through consequences and lessons later, but in that moment, when they need you, you just hold them. Because we are the safe place for them to land in this really messy, hard thing called life. And who they're going to become going through their messy moment is going to get them closer to who they're supposed to be. This one's hard. But we have to trust that we've done enough. We've taught them enough. We've loved them enough that they can get through their hard things so that we can trust them to navigate their life accordingly. And that is a big shift that we make. But we can do it. We can do it. And it does get easier over time. And the last one is number 4, we evolve. We do change. We do shift. We do let go. We do adjust our relationship. We do figure out how to not be so involved and how to be okay not knowing. We do explore who we are as a human at this stage in our life. We change. We grow. We expand. It's all part of the process. But we can't get to that new normal. We can't get to that shift. We can't get through that change without acknowledging that it's hard and normalizing the normal, without feeling the feelings, without learning how to trust ourselves and trust them. We're not going to get to this space of being okay. We really have to kind of go through those hard stretches of the marathon. And again, there's no best way to do it. We are all a work in progress. We are all finding our way the best way we can. We're learning as we go. Our kids will tell us when we're overstepping their boundaries and when we need to take a step back, but then we need to take care of ourselves. So many moms completely immerse themselves in their kids that they've lost their identity. They've lost who they are. This is your opportunity to go out and explore some new things. Try some new hobbies. Get together with your friends. Go hike a place you've never been. Journal. Sign up to learn Spanish. I don't care what you do. This is, instead of sitting and worrying about what you've done wrong as a parent or if your kid is going to be okay, pour some of that energy into your own healing and personal development. You are you underneath your roles, your titles, and your identities. You were a whole person before you became a mom. You may have been really distracted the last 18 years, pouring your blood, sweat, and tears into this human. And thank you, mama, for your freaking service. Thank you for investing in these humans. Thank you for pouring yourself into them. You're freaking amazing. But now you get to pour a little bit into you. Please do that. Please peel back the layers of your responsibilities to explore who you are. Go have some fun. Go try some new things. So let's wrap up. There is a lot of grief in the journey of being a mom. Like I was saying earlier, each new stage our kids enter in requires a new stage of us and our development. And in that new stage, there's a mourning process of the stage we just left, of the part of us, the version of us that we were just in before that. And when our kids are in high school and they're planning what they're going to do post-graduation, whether they go to college or they don't and they start their new lives, the fleeing of the nest is a major life transition. And there is so much grief in that. And I want to normalize that normal. I about lost my mind for a year. I cried. I journaled. I went in his room. I looked at his pictures. I showed up for his things. I was so desperate for attention. And I have found a new normal. It does get better, but you have to feel your way through this process. We have to let go of something that we biologically and intuitively and instinctively don't know how to. How does a mama bear know how to let go of her cub? We don't. We have to learn how. And we also have to reframe it in our minds. Just because I'm not as involved doesn't mean I'm not super connected to my child. Our relationship is just as strong, if not stronger than it's ever been, even though it looks and feels different. That is our new normal. My son calls me if he has relationship questions, or he's stuck, or when he's struggling in mental health, or when he's having a moment he's really proud of. But he doesn't ask me what's for dinner. We're still really close. Our bond is really strong, but it's different. It's a new normal. And grief isn't a linear process where you just get through it and you're done. It's a messy circular process where every time I go to Boulder to see one of his concerts or see him, I cry when I leave. I'm really happy when I'm there. I go through the process all over again, every time. When he comes home and then leaves, I'm really sad. I'm really sad. And thank God I have my sweet Chloe. Because she's still here. She's going to be with me for the next 13 years. But Mama, those kids fleeing is hard. And so take care of yourselves, okay? You'll find your way through this. Trust yourself. You've made it this far. Why wouldn't you make it through this next leg of the marathon? So that's all I have for you today. Grieve, grieve, grieve. Create your new normal. And if you made it to the end of this episode, I hope you found a juicy little nugget that you can put in your back pocket to serve you in such meaningful ways. And before we go, I did want to share a really exciting announcement with you all. We are going to officially launch the Unperfected Mama group, which is going to be a program for moms, a group that meets virtually where we dive deep into so many of the things that we talk about on the podcast, like reprogramming our beliefs around what it means to be good enough, working through identity loss and figuring out who we are outside of our role as mom, learning how to navigate big feelings, anxieties, grief, all of it, relationship stuff, claiming space for yourself and setting boundaries, and just being in community with one another to laugh and cry and talk about our experiences. In my personal and professional experiences, there is something really profound that happens in a group setting with other people going through a similar experience. So I'm going to be launching this group April 5th, 2023. We're going to be putting out some marketing here in the next few weeks, but there will be a link in the show notes for you to learn more about it. If you want to work with me in this way and join the community in this way, I would love to have you. So check out the link in the show notes, and I will see you all same time, same place next week. Bye for now. Thank you so much for listening to the Unperfected Pod. I hope this episode helped you feel a little less alone and a little more inspired to be you. If you like what we're doing here, I would so appreciate that you subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. If you do, share the episode on Instagram and tag me at Brooke Jean Unperfected to enter to win a 1-to-1 laser coaching session. Also, feel free to join me in my private Facebook community, Mommy's Mental Health Matters, where we continue the conversation. Thanks again for being here, and see you in next week's episode.